Hi, my name is Mrs. Travers, and I am the teacher for ENG4U. And the purpose of this video is to take you through the final course culminating activity that is worth 30% of your mark. It begins on day one of the course, and you have 4 weeks in which to accomplish it. I just want to point out that there's not many due dates quite yet, but I do have the final date for the course culminating activity. It is on July 26th, which is a Friday, and you want to make sure that you get that assignment handed in. So where do you find information on the course culminating activity? I know it says right now there's no announcements to display, but where you should find this video is actually right here in the announcements. This is the major hub for how I run my classes. Always come to the announcements for the information and the important details and links to things that you will need to know quickly as to what it is that you're working on, especially with the fast pace that we are working with. So I know it says there's nothing here to display. It's really, really important that you always come here and check the calendar. Both these details can be found in the course home. So where else, other than the announcements, do I actually find the details of the course culminating activity? Let me take you to the content. What you're going to see may look very different from what yours looks like. And the whole purpose of that is because I have access to everything and I can open it or close it. And so what I tried to do is to minimize the amount of things that you were seeing so that you and I are both focusing on what is most important. So this course culminating activity begins on day one, and I really like that they actually put it there. So we're going to go to Content, Unit 1, Activity 1, and then we're going to expand it right here. So this course is all about reading and analyzing texts. Some of the key parts that you might have learned in grade 11 that we pull into grade 12 are literary lenses or perspectives that we also look through. And so there are a number of different components that resonate throughout the curriculum in grade 12. And that is, we are reading a variety of texts. We are annotating for meaning by identifying literary devices, as well as all the other components of plot and structure. And then what we are doing is, while we are reading and making meaning, we're annotating and then analyzing both for ourselves, but also through the various lenses that we have. And so over and over again, that's really what this whole course is about and why the CCA actually focuses on all of those components. So and when you go through Unit 1, Activity 1, what you are going to be doing is making notes as you go through on each of the components. Because even though this is about the CCA, there are some important components that will take place in Unit 1, Activity 1 that you will want to have in your notebook that will carry on throughout Unit 1. So the idea of resiliency, which is what all of your books are about, the book choices are about resiliency and adversity. So it takes you through those concepts first. So the purpose of this video is to talk about the culminating activity. So let's get into it. You are going to choose a novel from the list that I have in an email that I sent to you via Gmail, which is the HPEDSB Gmail, and the email that is connected to Prism that you'll be getting reports in. That I, in fact, sent out an email with all the book choices that I'm going to review in just a second, and gave you a few additional ones. This also will be linked in the announcements that I pointed to in the very beginning. And it is up to you, dear student, to locate and find a copy of one of these novels. So if you need to go to the library, if you need to look online, a lot of you might even want to look to audiobooks. And the only hesitation I would have about audiobooks It may work for you, but you need to know that you'll be making notes along the way while you listen to that particular novel, which is absolutely fine. I know that there's been a couple of novels that I wasn't able to get through until I just bought the audio copy and listened to it. So, step one, you need to choose a novel. And then we are going to be doing a 2-part project that I'll explain a little bit later on. So let's get into it. What novels would I like you to choose? They are all listed here, so you can just sort of walk through and see the titles. You may want to pick from this list and locate a copy, whether it's at a local library, if you have your own copy, if you want to go out and buy a copy, and also audiobooks. So here's step one, just general introduction. This is what I call a walkthrough. So what you can do is read a little excerpt from each of the top 8, and you can actually choose from there. Again, you have to locate it. These are not audio copies or text copies. They are simply excerpts, which means just a small snippet of the book. You have to go out and look for it. In that email and in the announcements, you'll actually see a list of 3 to 5 alternative books that you can choose outside of this that will serve the purpose. The key part of this is that we have a protagonist or a character in the story who faces great adversity and demonstrates resilience. So there are actually, after we have read and made notes on the book as we read along, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit, there's 2 things that we're going to be doing. Number one, it's called a scrapbook, but I also call it active reading notes, and I'm going to show you that in just a little minute. And a journal where you're responding to journal prompts. So I actually created a slideshow. That's not it. There we go. I created a slideshow just so that we could go through and make sure that we understand and can review what the final CCA is supposed to be all about. And this slideshow also has some resources that you may find very helpful to help you complete the project. So again, we're doing active reading notes, which are notes of analysis while we go through and read the novel. While you are looking through, there's information and content about annotation and how to annotate, which means making notes. So underlining, highlighting, circling, making symbols that you know and represent. And then annotation actually means making notes, which means not only can you identify that a character was introduced, but you're making notes about why that was important. So annotation of the book while you are reading along. And if it's not a copy that you own and you cannot make notes in the copy that you have, I highly recommend Post-it notes and or a notebook that sits to the side that while you read that book, that you can actually jot down page numbers or references or things that are important. So when you're done with that, you're actually going to hand those in. And the second part is there are 9 reading journal prompts that you are going to go through and respond to each of them. So you're going to read an entire text and then complete these 2. So what is it going to look like? Well, it can look like anything that you want it to be in the way that you want it to be demonstrated. There's a number of you that might just hand in an ongoing Google Doc that while you're going along and you're typing up your notes, that at the end of it, you just type up your journal responses. That's totally okay. Some of you might want to make a slideshow, and instead of typing up all those pieces, that you can actually link in pictures and have a Google Doc that you actually have as a link within your slideshow. A number of students like creating websites because it's very visual, and then you can link in those items, the 2 parts that you have to do. I've had a number of students do like a podcast or a blog or a vlog. So any of those are perfectly acceptable in which to demonstrate those 2 parts. So what are active reading notes? I've provided a couple of resources within this slideshow, within the announcements as well. As you're reading along and annotating, you're looking about characters, narrative structure, themes. Not just that you can identify the theme, but how do you know that's the theme? What emerges or what part of the story tells you that? Any historical context that it's not written in present day. Why would the author have chosen that time? What's the significance? identifying literary devices, and I've got an additional slideshow that can review those for you so that you're looking for them as you're reading through. But not only that you can identify alliteration, but that you can identify the reason that the author put that in there. And this may come a little bit later on, but looking at literary lenses. And if you were reading your story and you can identify that it's from a Marxist perspective or a feminist perspective, that you can actually apply those lenses and look at your story from those lenses. Within this slideshow, I've got a couple of exemplars and the things that you should be looking for when you're annotating. And for active reading notes, I've even created, that's what this popped up right here, is an example of what chapter 1 of the Kite Runner actually looks like when you do active reading notes. And then if you wanted to make a copy of this and just continue on for every chapter after that, you can start with chapter 1 if yours wasn't the Kite Runner. And these are the key things. So you can just keep copying that and identifying those within your book and then popping them in there. That can be your active reading notes. Okay, so when we're looking through, that can be found here as well as in the announcements. And then the second part is that you have 9 reading journal entries. And so they're linked here in the slideshow. You can also find them in Unit 1, Activity 1. And if you scroll down as you're reading and making notes about this introductory activity, making sure that you understand all of them, there's a number of different ways in which you can. Those journals are also listed in here. A short reflection about why you chose that novel and writing that into a paragraph or a little bit longer with examples, etc. So those are all listed here and here, as well as in your outline in Unit 1, Activity 1. So I like the way this course is outlined. You start off right away by choosing a novel, and every single day that you are in this course, you should be actively working to ensure that you're going to finish that novel in 4 weeks. So the final product of this is due at the end of July on the Friday. So let's go back to that course home, and we want to make sure that that final product of not just reading the book, but handing in this project, it's due on Friday, July 26th. We want to make sure that we get that assignment completed. So you can hand in things in 3 different places. You can choose which one. The calendar link means that that's a Dropbox right there. You can go into assignments and locate the CCA. The other thing that you can do, while it's introduced in Unit 1, Activity 1, the actual project is down in the very last part, Unit 4. It's going to be listed as Activity 2, but I'm going to rename that so it's the final culminating activity. It's going to review everything that you had in Unit 1, Activity 1, and the outline of the CCA with the journals and the notes, thinking about how you're going to hand that in, and then it has the final submission for that project. So that is the course culminating activity. It's worth 30% of your mark. You're picking a novel, you're reading, you're annotating, and you're recording those notes, as well as applying the information from the journal into those, from the novel into those journal prompts. If you have any questions about the course culminating activity that's due on July 26th, don't hesitate to reach out. I can go through and explain each component to you if it's not quite making sense.